thank you for joining us for this edition of OG Talks Good Energy. I'm here today with my partner, Molly Pela, to talk a little bit about the effect that we see AI having on the future of litigation. Molly, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
AI is everywhere these days. You can find what's good, what's bad, horror stories, sanctions, all kinds of different uses, and a lot of different people who have a lot of different perspectives on where things are going. Today, I want to talk a little bit about where you see things headed in the litigation realm, and in particular, why that might be of interest to our oil and gas producer clients. So what are some of the challenges and limitations that you're seeing these days with AI?
Well, the limitations, stop me when you've heard this. Oil and gas, a little conservative of an industry. And so some folks are really kind of reticent to adopt AI just because all this information goes in. It goes into this magical black box, and then input comes out. And so there's a hesitancy just to adopt it, given the complexities of oil and gas. And so it's like, well, did you consider this? Have you considered this lease line? Have you considered, this depth? Have you considered, is all of this baked into the mix? And not being able to really see kind of what the pathway is of the algorithm, it's difficult to believe like I can trust this material, right? I can rely on this, and this is good. And particularly because you're dealing with folks that are investing millions and millions and millions of dollars into this, to believe like, well, that's what the computer told me is a difficult sell sometimes when people are trying to make a decision about spending millions of dollars.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. One of the phrases I've heard when it comes to AI is garbage in, garbage out. And I think one of the concerns in our particular industry, especially when it comes to land rights, mineral rights, is that every parcel of land is unique, and every parcel of land has its own issues, its own ownership, its own nuances. And if you're not feeding the exact correct data into AI, then what you get out is probably not going to be accurate. And as it stands right now, some of these services like ChatGPT and others, they don't necessarily have untethered access to every courthouse's records, every county's records, every single document that might be important. So do you think it's fair to say that right now there are these types of limitations?
For sure. And, it's interesting that you talk about ChatGPT too, because another one of the drawbacks is the energy that it takes to funnel ChatGPT versus just like a Google search or a normal search just kind of on the internet. It's like a 9x difference, right? So it's like 2.7 watt hours of electricity for a ChatGPT search versus 0.3 for Google. So there is what are we saving here by using ChatGPT relative to this? And yes, absolutely to your point, is there's so many records that are recorded and so many records that aren't recorded that all go into making sure that you've got the proper information in order to predict where it is you should drill and who you should pay on the back end if, God forbid, and as we're all hoping to do, actually get production from these spaces. In AI, there are just gaps. And another weakness that AI has a little bit is this talent vacuum. You take a highly specialized field like oil and gas and a highly specialized field like AI, you're trying to combine it. It's like trying to put two unicorns together a little bit and come up with a product that's reliable, that you can look at and say, I believe that this information is correct and I can trust this.
Yeah, so I think you're still going to need a human touch and human oversight, and I think that our clients out there probably want to be cautious of somebody who's really pushing AI as a big cost-saving measure right now, because they're really probably cutting other corners to do so, and they're doing that without kind of that proper oversight, and somebody with a critical eye really looking at the results, looking at the source material, making sure that AI is getting the complete picture. And I think that we're probably still some time away from that. I mean, would you kind of agree with that?
Yeah, look, God bless the internet. You can find anything you want on the internet relative to AI. You can find all of this information that says the robots are coming and are going to take over the world and humans will become obsolete. And then you'll find other folks that say AI is going to be the, like next Laserdisc era of, a flash in the pan, and then it'll be, here and then gone. I'm going to take the neutral approach because I think it's the real one, is that AI is going to be an incredible tool eventually, and once it's built out and once there is some more reliability to it. but you're always going to need a human to look at it and oversee it and finally make these decisions about, is this where we're going to drill? Is this the time to do it? What do these production numbers need to look like? How do we take this information and actually put it together and assess it? And look, AI's got a lot of incredible, they're making tremendous amounts of advancement, but speaking about cost measures as well, you're looking to integrate this super powerful, super time demanding AI, and then integrate it with software that's not at those speeds and everything. And so either you got to switch whole cloth to the new AI system, which people are wildly uncomfortable doing, or try to integrate it with the systems that work, which is slow and time consuming and expensive.
Well, I still have my Star Wars laser discs, and I'm convinced that they're going to make a comeback. So I'll just put that out there.
On eBay?
Well, they're maintaining their value. I'll put it that way. So let's talk about some of the ways that AI is being used and is being helpful. One of the things that we're seeing is AI type solutions being used to analyze a lot of geological data, reservoir analysis, looking at results, looking at mud logs, helping to optimize location scouting, things like that. Are you seeing clients kind of moving that direction?
Sure. It's great, right? If you can use this information and get a more accurate prediction of these, subsurface reservoirs and where you're, more likely to hit. You're preventing waste from a money perspective. You're preventing waste from, potential environmental implications, whether drilling dry holes or just from, again, the energy it takes to drill it. Folks are using it again as a tool. Smart folks are using it as a tool, and then ultimately still having a decision maker on the back end. And it's really helping with, forecasting drilling schedules and managing production. And, when you think of the 500,000 things that you've got to put into, producing and getting a well ready, of just from a hiring perspective, from an equipment perspective, from just all of the logistics and insurance and mobilization and all of those things, it can be super helpful to predict those where to drill and when to drill, and it tracks the market and can give you real-time indications as to cost and production and whether or not that's valuable, and it's huge.
That is huge. Another concern in the oil field is always safety. And while it might not be as bad as as season 1 of the show Landman might have us believe, I don't think most people get bags over their head in airplane hangars and are maybe involved in a daily blowout. At least I hope not. How are ways that you're seeing AI lead to better safety solutions in the patch?
I really think that it comes down to kind of three areas. Number one, preventative maintenance. So these things are monitoring, AI has the ability to monitor the well conditions, make corrective, tweaks immediately. And so, prevent these big issues and these big deals. And then it also lets you know what the health of your equipment is. Is it time? And it prevents, these massive downtimes that you have, of course, that can cost millions of dollars if something breaks. There's a saying about but an ounce of prevention is worth a pound on the back end. And so that's really helpful. I think the other thing that's really advantageous is it allows for remote monitoring. So that way, you can monitor several wells and several, what's happening all at once, and not having to drive to each individual location, because these wells are spaced because we're here in Texas, they've got to be spaced. And so it saves from that aspect. Every time something has gone wrong on a well, almost inevitably, I'm like, where was the company man? He's always in his truck doing paperwork. And now he can be in his truck doing paperwork and monitoring, what's happening at these different wells. And then ultimately it comes down to really and this is the most significant, is the human aspect of it and the human safety measures that are there. If it looks like it's going to blow, everybody bail. Hopefully it doesn't, right? But hopefully you're now preventing these catastrophic events, both in a human cost and in an environmental cost, and really bringing that down. And safety is ultimately, AI is not going to do the work for you. You're still going to have human beings doing that. And making it as safe as possible, I think, is the ultimate goal of anybody.
It'll be interesting to also see if the Railroad Commission and other state regulatory agencies are able to leverage some of this in the future for, their well monitoring. Because as we all know, they're extremely short-staffed. A lot of wells get overlooked, a lot of issues get overlooked for a very long time, can lead to a lot of environmental problems, and so it'll be interesting to see, how AI solutions get leveraged in the regulatory space as well.
Yeah. Plus, pros and cons both in that situation because it is so detailed and specialized. But I'm sure that it's coming and that there will be a way to monitor that.
So, what are some of the downsides or challenges you see using AI or with AI really taking off over the next few years?
Yeah, I mean, it really comes back to, how it's being made and what it's considering. And if I'm investing $1 million or more in this, in this well, I want to know how this is being made and being told we put it into the computer, it went through the algorithm, and this is the answer that we're getting. I may, depending on your investor or who you're answering to, they may want a little more specificity to that than other than, I don't know, this is what the computer told me. And so there's just a believability and a credibility issue I think that AI has a little bit right now. Like you were saying, of course, we've all heard the horror stories of the hallucinations and, people being sanctioned and all these things. And, it's just, I think it's a little, we'll get there. It's just a little bit too soon right now. But I think it certainly can be an advantageous tool relative to helping make those decisions.
Yeah, and I think we're going to see the same thing on the title examination side, which is, AI might be useful in sort of high-level data accumulation, even, in essence, kind of pumping out maybe a preliminary draft of a title report or something on a tract of land. But I still think that we are quite some time away from, not needing that human element to come in and really look through the documents, trying to ascertain intent, what the parties were trying to do, looking at the bigger picture. AI, again, it's only going to be as accurate as the source data that's being pumped into it right now. And until it's got, a complete universal ability to search all courthouse records, everything that's behind a paywall, I think that you're not going to get completely accurate reporting out of that. And it's going to continue to be somewhat siloed. Maybe a certain broker or a certain courthouse or county is going to be using maybe an AI solution for their records, but they're not all necessarily communicating with each other, or at least not yet. We're not there yet. So.
And it brings you up another really good point about, the security of it all and what happens with the data, right? So I don't want you to be able to use my data that I've got. Now, courthouse records and public records is a different story. That's available to everybody. But if I've gone out and hired folks and I've got an accurate, or what I believe to be an accurate beat on something, I don't want this to be loaded into the AI machine that's going to generate answers for you. You go do your own work. I'll go do my own work. That's the nature of, competition and trying to get to the wells first. And so, it's another struggle and another challenge is, when this information goes into the algorithm, then what happens to it? Fine, it gives you the answer, but it keeps it. And, the way AI works is it continuously takes in information to learn and to build and to grow. Well, I want to do that in my vacuum, in my side, and I don't want it to feed your side. And so how to keep those things separate is, another concern and another issue that keeps coming up.
Yeah, and I think certainly protecting those types of trade secrets and obviously for law firms, our ethical duty of confidentiality limits in some ways what we can, utilize something like ChatGPT for, because it is open source, in many ways. And so we can't just go type in, a lot of confidential client data and ask, ChatGPT or AI to analyze it or summarize it or anything like that. So I can certainly see where, in analyzing discovery or, summarizing depositions or things like that, it could be helpful. But again, it's going to have to be sort of siloed and protected and kept confidential in some way, I think, before it can be very viable. Molly, I'd like to turn the conversation now to how we specifically see AI being used kind of in the litigation sphere. I've heard a lot of stories about legislatures stepping in, talking about stepping in, things like whether or not AI can be used in jury selection, these types of issues. So what are you kind of seeing from the litigation side?
There's a lot of programs out there that are geared towards litigation, and it's pretty remarkable in as much as I can load in an original petition, for example, and it will immediately spit out to me information about what the cause of action is, what the defenses are to this cause of action. It will begin preparing discovery requests, interrogatories, and requests for production. It will do an analysis of the venue of where it's filed, give me intel on the judge, arguably if it has it. And all of this is stuff that normally, as first and second year lawyers, I would spend 10, 15 hours processing to try to impress my partner that I was working on this. And this will do it in about 15 seconds, a little longer than that. But so it certainly is expediting those processes. Again, you've got to have somebody look at it on the back end and say, are these the right questions to be asking? Is this information accurate? But it is leaps and bounds ahead of prior technologies that we had, and really becoming kind of the mainstream now. Some of the bigger clients are really looking, are you using this? Because this is a more effective use of our time than paying associate hours at 10 or 15 hours versus 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes of this, AI time. And so we're seeing it a lot in that way. Speaking about the legislation, there's a act pending in the Texas House right now, and I'm going to mess up the name, but it is the Texas Act, something about AI. I can fill in the name for you. We'll put it in the comments afterwards. But it's pending in the House right now. And it's really geared at consumers and consumers interfacing with AI, and then what businesses are doing on the back end of it. But a lot of it is like, you cannot take biometrical information, process it, and use it to have kind of outcome predictive measures, right? And so when I first read it, I was like, man, this would be fantastic if we could do this in picking juries. If I could take some limited information, put it into this algorithm, and have some sort of information about how you're going to, ultimately vote as a juror, I mean, God bless, fantastic. It would make it so much easier. And this bill specifically says you can't do that. And so rats, we'll have to stick to the old way a little bit. But there is a lot of, at least it's showing a sign that the legislature is recognizing, look, AI is not going anywhere, but how can we keep it from being abusive, and how can we keep it from protecting consumers? And right now it's all very much geared towards consumers, and not specifically towards, oil and gas or litigation or juries or anything in particular, but showing a very strong sign. There are other bills that are pending in other states. I think Colorado and Michigan, don't quote me on these, but other legislatures are starting to put them together. But I think the other thing is, as more and more oil companies are using AI, I think it's an interesting conversation about, does it start redefining the industry standard, and does it start redefining, reasonable, prudent operator? That's the standard that everybody is held to, and in all the MSAs, it's you will perform this work in compliance with industry standards. Well, does that mean you're going to use AI? Does it mean you're not going to use AI? And at some point, the balance is going to switch. It's very easy on this side right now to say, no, we're not there yet. And once we get to the other side, and I believe that we will, it'll be very easy to say, well, of course we're using AI. I mean, you've got to be insane nuts. It's like seatbelts, right? It's like,
right.
Oh, seatbelts were just kind of nice to have. And then now it's like, of course we're using seatbelts.
It hasn't become the industry standard yet, but we're getting there quickly.
Right. And so it's this interesting transition time of, it's like, okay, if you're a super major and you're not using AI, should you be? Is that what a reasonably prudent operator does? And then at what point does it trickle down? And that's going to be the standard for, so much of the litigation that follows, certainly on the negligence side of it, because that's the duty as a reasonably prudent operator. But even in addressing these contracts of like, well, would this have taken you this long if you would have used AI? Would this have happened had you been using the AI that's available to you? And, the argument against it is it's really expensive. It's incredibly expensive. And but then, that's a slippery slope as well, because then are you putting profits over people, and all of these narratives that you like to hear from, certainly personal injury attorneys as well. And it's just really creating this like conundrum in this very gray area which is kind of exciting. To at least there's an argument to be made about it from a litigation side of it. But just watching it transition it's really kind of interesting.
Yeah, and presumably the price will start to come down. Economies of scale will take over. Eventually, more competition. We're already seeing, some of this happening on Wall Street and other countries coming out with their own answers to Chat GPT and claiming more efficiency, cheaper things like that. And I think that's just the beginning of where it's headed. It reminds me a little bit, by way of analogy, of the effect on the industry that just something as simple as digitizing the courthouse records has had, whereas, you don't have to send landmen out to all these distant counties for days on end to dig through courthouse records and wait in line when there's a boom going on in one area. I think if any broker's not using the online digital records to pull, oil and gas ownership reports, they're at a huge disadvantage, and they're going to get left by the wayside. And so I think we're going to see the same thing, over the next few years with some of these AI solutions. Molly, thanks again for joining me today. Thank you, everyone out there, for joining us for this edition of OG Talks Good Energy. We've really enjoyed putting this one together and looking forward to seeing what type of dystopian future AI has in store for us.